Hello and welcome to the Import-Export Hub channel. I'm your host Bogdan, and today's episode is very special for me because I'll talk about one of my favorite products to do business with, which is honey. And don't worry, I won't talk about the physical or chemical characteristics of honey, but I will focus rather on the trade data both for imports and exports. Then I will cover some information about the honey value chain, and I will finish by sharing some thoughts for the beekeepers, the importers, and the exporters as well. And as I said earlier, honey is one of my favorite products to do business with, and I have in mind four reasons. The first of all is the demand for honey. There is constant demand for honey. There's no big volatility in terms of demand for honey. You have big customers like the restaurants, the hotels, the pharmaceutical industry, and the natural supplements industry. The second reason is the shelf life for honey. Theoretically, if stored properly, honey doesn't expire, or at least honey has a long shelf life. The third reason is the byproducts generated by the hives, the bees, sorry. I'm talking here about the propolis extract, the pollen, the bee wax, and even the bee venom. And the fourth one is related to the nature of honey itself in terms of handling, transportation, and storage. And before I go further, I want to share with you the screen in order to see together the honey value chain. Okay, so this is the honey value chain, which is a rough representation of mine, but I think it will help you better understand the process. And from top to bottom, we have the input supply of bees, hives, and tools and specific gears that the beekeepers need to collect and transport honey. Then you have the production of honey itself, which can be either individually or in cup-based apiaries, followed by the semi-processing of honey and the primary transport of honey from the apiaries to the collection facilities. The next step is the collection of and the bulking of honey by the bulking agents, the cooperatives, or the honey collection plants. Then you have the secondary transport and the secondary bulking, refining, and packaging, followed by the distribution, which is either wholesale or retail. And the last step, the last process, is the arrival of honey into the end markets for the domestic consumers, the commercial companies, or the food processors. Also, in this video, I want to cover some of the requirements that the importers and exporters as well need to comply in order to export or import honey into the European Union. And here I have the general requirements like the commercial invoice, the freight documents, or the packing list. And then you have the specific requirements like the control of contaminants in foodstuffs, the control of residues, traceability, and the certificate of origin. And of course, you have to be in compliance with the European regulation in terms of labeling. Now I would like to deep dive into the data for exporters and importers, and I will begin with the exporters, focusing only on the top 10 exporters of honey in terms of exported value in 2009. And here all the values are expressed in US dollars. The biggest exporter of honey in 2019 is China, followed by New Zealand, Argentina, Germany, Ukraine, India, Spain, Hungary, Brazil, and Belgium. And here I find it surprising to see that Hungary and Belgium, relatively small countries, are in top 10 exporters. And I think that here Hungary and Belgium have a lot of re-export activities, but I might be wrong. If you have any opinion, don't forget to share with us in the comment section. Moving on to the importers, also I'll focus on only on the top 10 importers of honey in 2019, and we see here that the United States is the biggest importer of honey for 2019 with more than 430 million worth of imports, followed by Germany, Japan, France, United Kingdom, China, Italy, Saudi Arabia, Belgium, and then Poland. Next, I would like to focus on the top 3 exporters and importers, and I will begin with China, the biggest exporter of honey in 2019. And we see here that the top 10 partners for the Chinese honey make up for 85% of the share, with Japan in the top in the first place with 27.2%, followed by the United Kingdom, Poland, Belgium, Spain, Germany, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Australia, and then Portugal. In terms of growth, we see here that Saudi Arabia had an average of 35% growth in the imported value of Chinese honey between 2015 and 2019, while Belgium had a 24% decrease in the same time frame. Moving on to New Zealand, which is the second biggest exporter of honey for 2019, we see here that the top 10 makes up for roughly 91% of the total share, with China being in the biggest importer of New Zealand honey, followed by the United States, Australia, United Kingdom, Japan, Germany, Hong Kong, Singapore, Canada, and then France. In terms of growth value, we have Germany, which had an average of 25% growth value increase in value between 2015 and 2019, while Singapore and China had 9% decrease in imported value between 2015 and 2019. Moving on to the third biggest exporter of honey in the world, which is Argentina. We see here that for Argentina there are not too many partners. I count here only 15, but the top 10 makes up for 98% of the total share of the Argentinian honey exported in the world for 2019, with the United States by far the most important partner with more than 54% in share, followed by Germany, Japan, Belgium, France, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, and then United Kingdom. And here I highlighted only France, which had 55% on average increase in the imported value of honey from Argentina. Now I will move on to the first importer of honey in the world, which is the United States. And here we see that the top 10 commercial partners for the US makes up for roughly 91% of the total share, with India and Argentina almost neck and neck contending for the first place. In the third place we have Brazil, and then Vietnam, New Zealand, Canada, Ukraine, China, Mexico, and on the 10th place we have Australia. In terms of growth value, on average China had a 220% growth, while Vietnam and Mexico had a 14% decrease between 2015 and 2019. Moving on to the second biggest importer of honey in 2019, we see here that for Germany, top 10 countries make up for roughly 75% of the total share, with Mexico being the first supplier of honey for Germany, followed by Argentina, Ukraine, New Zealand, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, Chile, Cuba, and then Spain. In terms of growth, we see here that New Zealand had an average of 22% growth between 2015 and 2019, while Romania had a 14% decrease. Moving on to the third most important importer of honey in the world, which is Japan, we see here that the top 10 make up for 95% of the total share, with China by far the most important partner for the imported value of honey for Japan with 47.1%. Then we have New Zealand, Canada, Argentina, Hungary, Romania, Myanmar, Australia, France, and then Mexico. Here I'm very pleased to see that Romania had an average of 16% increase between 2015 and 2019, while Mexico had a 7% decrease during the same time frame. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the tariffs, and I will focus on a specific example, and I took Mexico as the exporting country and Germany as the importing country. And here we see that the erga omnes duty, or the third country duty for importing honey into the European Union, is at 17.3%. But because since the 1st of July 2000, there was a preferential tariff quota between Mexico and the European Union, the tariff was almost halved at around 8.6%, given the fact that the annual tariff quota volume is below 30,000 tons. And here on the upper left side of the screen, we see the trade data for 2019 for honey imported into the European Union from Mexico, and we see here that Germany had almost 85% of the total share, and this is not just for 2019. Below we have a table with the historical data from 2008 until 2018, and here at the bottom of the table I've highlighted the share of the German imports of honey from Mexico, and between 2008 and 2018 we see that on average Germany had 82.5% of the total share, which underlines once again that the German business people understood and took advantage of this free trade agreement, and in fact preferential tariff quota, and they've managed to gain a considerable market share. Okay, so before I finish this video, I just want to make some suggestions for the beekeepers, the importers, and exporters. And I will start with the beekeepers. Start small, gain as much experience as you can, and try to be part of a larger co-op-based apiary of at least 30 or 40 beekeepers, because in this way you will have a better control of the honey value chain, and will also help you have a better negotiating power both with the input suppliers and the buyers of honey. Another factor to consider is to exploit the benefits of the byproducts generated by the bees, like propolis extract, bee venom, bee wax, or propolis. Another suggestion is to try and invest in bio certification, because bio honey has a lot of demand in the high income countries and well-developed countries like Western Europe, or Japan, South Korea, and the United States. Also, my suggestion is to try to split the revenue stream, like a 70-30 split will be okay. So 70% of the revenues from the wholesale market and 30% of the revenues from the retail market, like supermarkets or local shops. As for the importers and the exporters, try to benefit from the free trade agreements or bilateral trade agreements between the importing and the exporting countries. Try to make from the beekeepers or scope-based API with your partners, not just your providers, and try to provide as much information as you can, try to be transparent as you can, and try to be not just a buyer or the seller, but also a partner. Okay, so this is all for today. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and most importantly, to comment down below. Until next time, keep your business safe.